One thing that has not slowed down in the middle of the pandemic, the team over at Oakland University, the esports team, they are rocking it. With us now, let's bring in the coach, Leone. Great to have you with us again. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I am doing fantastic.
I will say I still find this such a fascinating world. I'm old school, but do you have that conversation with parents a lot?
Very often, more than I can count, I talk about it. In fact, I had a conversation yesterday where, I was sitting with a group of people and kind of explaining esports to them, and they were telling me, why do people watch people play esports? Why do people watch people play games, really? And I said, well, you watch people play football, and you're not playing football yourself. Why is that enjoyable? It's kind of the same thing, just for a newer generation.
That is a great analogy, by the way. That's something we could all wrap our minds around.
Yeah, I think it helps. A lot of the times when I talk to parents who really don't understand gaming that much, which I totally understand, a lot of the times it helps just to do sports references, because there really are a lot of similarities there, and it really helps them really understand where the players are coming from.
Because with that as well, you are a team and you train just like a sports team as well.
Yeah, we fall, at least us here at Oakland University, we fall under the athletics program. We practice multiple times a week. We compete every week. We practice how we play. And we also take a lot of other serious things into consideration, like life balance, mental health, physical health, nutrition, obviously diet and exercise programs as well. So it's not something that we take lightly, and we really do consider it a sport.
So with that, I have been hearing more and more colleges and universities are starting to add esports teams. Do you think this is only going to continue to grow in popularity?
Absolutely. The growth has been tremendous. And to throw numbers out there, 2014 was the first school in the U.S. to give out scholarships for gaming. So that was just one school in 2014. Now there's over 200. So you can see the growth is just absolutely massive over the last few years. Now we're seeing a lot of high schools and middle schools even start esports clubs or programs at their own university or own schools. And we've reached out to the community to try and help with those efforts too. But we're seeing growth in college, in high school, in the professional scene. So I don't see it stopping anytime soon. Of course, like anything, there's got to be a plateau at some point, but I don't think we're at that point.
So before we jump into the season that you and your team members had, at the end of the day, this is more than just a sport. It's also helping train some of the students for a career. So what are some of the career options and pathways if someone is into esports?
There are so many career paths. It's really difficult. There's actually an amazing infographic out there that lists all of the ones that somebody was able to think of, the 80 plus. But if you think about it this way, if you think about ESPN or NFL, there's so many jobs that go along with putting on that kind of a professional level broadcast. And the professional esports scene has something that mirrors that very well to a really professional degree. So you have the play-by-play analyst, you have coaches, head coaches for the teams, you have nutritionists for the teams, you have sports psychologists for the teams, you have team managers, you have lead directors, you have referees for the game. So all of these different aspects that you have to be able to supply as far as employees feed the industry. And so for people who are interested in esports, it's not necessarily that you have to be the top 1%. You don't have to be amazing at these games to live the dream of being employed in the esports industry. There's a lot of different avenues to go after. So we at Oakland University, we really try and promote that and help out students who aren't even in our varsity program. We've opened up a lot of doors for them to get internship opportunities in the esports industry.
So one of the things that's really helped spur the popularity of esports is when you can pack a stadium with some of the competitions that didn't happen over the past year because of COVID. So what is that side of esports looking like right now? Are people ready to get back into competition?
Absolutely. And with vaccines coming out, and I think over 50% of the U.S. adult population is now vaccinated, we're starting to get closer and closer to that point of normalcy, right, before COVID hit us, and maybe we'll be able to do these in-person events. In fact, we booked our first in-person event that we're going to travel to for next fall. We already booked it. So we're really optimistic about it. And the esports, I guess, ecosystem is very optimistic and really excited about getting back into person, because it might seem like you can play games online virtually and it's not a problem. But the best part about esports is getting in a packed stadium with thousands of people and all have the same interest. It's just amazing. So I'm excited for that, to travel as a coach. But I know the players are excited about that, and people are ready to be spectators for these events too.
Because it is a community. It really is a community. We're talking with Carl Leone. He's the esports head coach over at Oakland University. Your team had a good year. Despite a pandemic, don't let COVID slow you down.
Yeah, no kidding. What an interesting time to start up the program. We announced it in December, and then in March, COVID hit, and March was when I was hired. So it's a really odd time to start a program, but we were able to plow through it, I think, very successfully. I mean, on a lot of different metrics, I think we just blew it out of the water this year, and we're hoping to keep that bar and exceed it for next year. But yeah, our Smash team was ranked top 10 in the country. League of Legends team was top 36 in the country, and our Rocket League team was top 50 in the country. So, out of about 400 teams compete in each of those titles around the nation. So we're in that top 10%, top 5% in our first year. Really incredible. And I'm not taking praise for myself. It's our student athletes that have done it for us.
Yeah, but we should mention again, it's in the middle of the pandemic, the very first year. So are you looking ahead to next year? Like, how do I top this? Are you a little nervous?
Of course, there's a little bit of nerves, but we were able to retain a lot of our players because they're younger players. So I think we have the same level of talent, if not even better, coming in for next year. We're also kind of doubling up the resources that we have. For example, doubling up the roster size. So I'm actually recruiting 14 new student athletes for next year, and we're adding a new title. So we're adding Overwatch for next year. So we're really excited to compete in that game as well. So maybe that's a way that we can raise the bar even higher, is get nationally ranked in 4 games. So
when you have a year like you just had, does that help you in recruiting? And when we're talking about recruiting, it's the same thing as like we're thinking, when it comes to recruiting for the baseball team or the football team or the golf team, you're looking for the best players.
Absolutely. Our program, our players rank around the top 1% of players nationally, so 99th percentile. That includes the professional players. So you can imagine these players are really talented. It's very difficult to find them because there's not that many out there. So we put a lot of resources into recruiting the right students and finding them. For our process, like you said, it's similar to traditional sports. We have esports combines that high school players will actually compete in and kind of show off for college scouts. We compete in a lot of those. There's also student directories that we look into, and we do a lot of social media marketing, pushing out our content, making sure people know about our program in the first place so that they can apply to it.
So this really is such a groundbreaking arena, and for all the parents who are constantly complaining to their kids, put down the video game, go outside and play, they could have the next superstar, because some of the students are kids, really like 11, 12, 13, some of them are raking in major money by playing these games online. Yeah, so I always reference League of Legends just because it's the most popular esport out there. But the professional players there, their salaries range from 300,000 is about the average, I believe, and then it goes up to 7 figures for many players in League of Legends. And then as far as they have marketing opportunities outside of that, so it's not just that. But again, like any other sport, we're talking about that top 0.05% of players. So what happens to the rest of them, who are aspiring players but don't make it? Well, there's a whole esports industry to get them excited about their job and their profession. So I think that that's important. And, for talking to the parents, I always advocate for balance. I'm not someone, even though I'm an esports director,
I do not advocate for 10, 12-hour days of gaming at home. That's not healthy. It wouldn't be healthy for football. You can imagine your body would be wrecked. It's the same thing for esports. It's just not good. So if you want to really promote it and maybe craft your child into an esports prodigy, shorter goal-oriented practices are much better than long, drawn-out practices with really no goal. So 2-3 hours a day is a good way to do it, but literally notes beforehand and after about what you're trying to work on, what you're trying to improve on, and then if you did after, and what are the next steps.
With that, Carl Leone with us here on the MegaCast. He's the esports head coach over at Oakland University. What do most of your student athletes major in? Or is it all over?
A lot of STEM fields. You see a lot of them. I'll say probably the most often it's computer science. I think that falls hand in hand with gaming, but it's really kids. All over the place. Yeah.
They're the smart kids.
Absolutely.
So what do you think the future of this field is going to be? Is this really the ground level? It's just going to continue to grow?
Yeah, if you want to quote me on it, I would say in 5 years, college esports looks more like an athletic department than one sport. So you would have someone like an esports director and then a head coach for each of the sports that you'd be competing in, because that's a real honest way to look at it, is that we compete in League of Legends, Rocket League, Smash Brothers, now Overwatch. That's 4 different sports. You're not going to find a coach who is able to coach football, soccer, and baseball to the same level. So I think 5 years you're going to find director of esports, head coach for each, and then maybe 1 or 2 assistant directors in there for every program.
So for us that maybe aren't familiar with some of these games, is it just those leagues, those games, or do you anticipate more games are going to come in?
So those are the titles that we compete at Oakland University. There's a lot of other ones out there. Those are the most popular. I think if it were to be ranked, it'd be League of Legends first, Rocket League second, Overwatch third, and then Smash Brothers would maybe be number 5 in there. But other popular titles in college esports would be like Fortnite or Call of Duty, CSGO, Valorant. Those would be other really big popular titles. We just chose not to compete in those for one reason or another. But I could honestly, over years, if we're talking, there's certainly some of those games that will fall out of favor and will be dumped by college esports programs, and those students will have to transfer. That's an interesting, situation to be in. Thankfully, we've not had to be in that yet for year 1. And there's going to be new games introduced to replace them too.
With that, if I'm a high school student and I'm thinking this is the arena I want to go, what advice do you give to them?
If they're looking for a scholarship, I'd train specifically on your skill set in the game to try and rank up. If you're within the top 1% of ranked players, maybe top 5% of ranked players, then you've already kind of achieved the status of the rank, and now it's more about marketing yourself, making sure you get in contact with college recruiters such as myself or other esports directories. There's a great website out there called lfgroup.gg, I believe. And that website is great for finding esports programs out there that offer scholarships and trying to get a scholarship for it.
So, Carl, if I can ask you, because I'm just wondering, some students don't even have a computer. We found that out throughout COVID. So, how does someone even get into this if they're sitting at home with their cell phone? It feels like there's not a lot of diversity, because it's not only just having a computer, because you're not playing on your Chromebook, but you have to have a good computer as well, and those can get a bit pricey.
Yeah, definitely. What I would suggest, if you're in a situation like that, it's definitely difficult. It's not something where it's an inexpensive sport. Like you could reference soccer would be very easy to pick up, and play. What I would say is focus on titles that don't require a computer that's that high tech. So specifically League of Legends, it's always joked about that it could be run on a toaster. It might be more difficult, but you can play the game for sure on a game like that. So practicing that title, if you're looking specifically to become a professional player or to get a scholarship, an esports program, I would focus on games that are a little bit more low tech and easier to get into. But you will need a computer in some capacity. You may be able to work out a deal with a local library. Maybe they'll let you sit there and play? I'm not sure. There's also some PC cafes, is what I would call them, but you can rent a computer at the cafe for hours at a time, although those can be a little bit more expensive. And to me, it's more economical to try and save up for the computer than to rent one.
Go out, mow some lawns, save up the money, get a good computer, and you could be making a few $100,000 by the time you're 2021.
Yeah, just have to think of it as an investment, right? An investment in your own future in that way.
Well, and the same as sports, parents don't think twice about getting a baseball coach or a football coach, so that could be another revenue stream as well, be a coach.
Yeah, I think over time we'll find that the traditional sports, the avenue to get into college or professional play is going to be mirrored by esports. It just hasn't gotten there yet. We're really in the infancy stage here.
Carl Leone with us again on the MegaCast. He's the esports head coach over at Oakland University. Thank you for your time and congratulations again on your first year. We're excited to see what year 2 brings you.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to coming back on.